Welcome to the Green Team Legendarium, where we talk about books the other teams won't or haven't gotten to yet. My pseudonym is Hurinfan, and I'm joined today with Ash.
Hey.
And we have a surprise guest who decided to start reading with us after our last episode. We have Cesky here. Welcome.
Yes, I am here to help get to the root of this book with you guys.
Something has been, I don't want to say bugging me, but I've been thinking about this a lot since you decided to join. Why?
Why did I decide to join?
Yes, why?
Well, I wanted to give it a shot because you have talked it up a little bit before. You guys did actually manage to record a first episode, and then you asked me really nicely, and I'm your friend, so I said yes. And then I
Oh,
started regretting it almost immediately, but I persevered. I've got stories to tell about reading this book, so
I'm
don't
going
you
to feel
worry.
guilty.
I mean, you've read like the half the book we've gotten to in a pretty short amount of time too.
Well, I'll just air that out right now. I probably skipped from like 11% of the book to like 26% of the book. And I feel no worse for the wear.
Why?
Wait.
It was so incredibly painful. It quite literally destroyed my ability to read for, the months since I agreed to read this with you. I literally read up to that spot and then not a word since. And then I decided, you know what? I listened to you guys' podcast and you guys briefly covered basically whatever doesn't happen in this book. And then I read forward and I continued to basically understand exactly what I was understanding before when I started reading from there. So it was really no loss, It was a win-win for me.
So technically you've read the section that we're covering now,
Yeah,
right?
no, I skipped from like
Yeah.
11% to 25% in the book, like the actual
Right.
so like from page like 50 to like 100 or whatever it would have been, right? But like so then I read 25% all the way to 50%. And
Sure.
I was much more willing to just be like, I don't understand. Just gonna keep reading and pretend like I understand and just skip to the next page and skip to the next page and go on like that.
Okay.
Fascinating.
Y- y-
You don't sound pleased.
I'm not. Like
I'm I'm sorry.
this book is like 90% context, and so when you miss a lot of the stuff that comes before, you're to just continue to not understand the stuff when it comes up later.
Well, I feel like I'm understanding the parts that I basically can
You understand the
understand.
stuff that you understand.
Uh, well, it doesn't make sense when I
Okay.
say it like that, but I don't feel like when I was reading at 11%, I feel like I was understanding less than I did when I just skipped to 25%. If that makes any sense. Like when I actually started reading at about the 25% mark, I feel like I was actually understanding more of what was going on than I was where I kind of skipped ahead a little bit.
Because you listened to our podcast in the meantime, I'm sure.
And I did, yes, and I did listen to the podcast, and so you guys talked about a lot of things, and then
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
that's what happened.
I assume you picked up that this book is not really plot focused, though, right?
Oh yes, that was clear from
Okay.
page 1 or 2 actually, because at first, the first section was like, oh yeah, this could be, and then it
All
was
right.
very not. So
Um. Well, what has changed, Ash? What has changed since the last 25%?
I mean, it got much easier for me to read as I went on, which I am very glad for.
I think the beginning is pretty front loaded.
Um,
To first of all teach you how
mm,
to read the book, and second of all to you know, stop people who aren't willing to put in the effort, and also front loaded with big roadblocks that are just like maybe you should stop here if that makes sense. For example, I think like the first 6% is the really long uh, filmography.
um,
maybe
I don't remember that.
Filmography.
I don't remember
It
exact
explained every
percentages
single
on
one of
things.
JOI's films, the people involved, a small synopsis of the plot. It's like
Mhm.
I think it might be the longest footnote in the book.
Yeah, I mean,
Probably one I
in this,
briefed over.
yeah, in this section, I think there was a lot of like stuff that was interesting on its own, like the pinnacle of that to me was the game Eschaton, but also Mario's film I thought was really funny.
Yeah,
Um,
that was pretty funny.
yes, and they did their tennis drills. I think I enjoyed that, and we got more Avril. I think that was she's great.
Oh, the section where she's talking with
And
the little
then
girls about, adults touching them inappropriately, and they're like, "Sometimes my dad pushes me."
yeah, sometimes
That
my
was
grandma
pretty
pinches
funny.
my cheek. I don't like it,
She
and they
pinches
just
it really hard though. It's not just a friendly pinch. It's mean.
That reminds me of the time when they're talking about,
yeah.
instructors and how the instructors can get around, like, getting in trouble by the police by disguising them as, like, drills.
Yeah.
Yeah, we also get the story of Mario's birth. I thought that was really funny. I just everything like the whole
We got
story of
his
his
whole
life
birth, and we
and
got
how
all every
grotesquely
single
ugly he is.
detail of the stuff that's only been hinted at before and related to his appearance and his mental capacity, which really isn't, uh, that diminished compared to the rest of his body.
Yeah. Yeah, and we have Hal's paranoia that he's actually Avril's favorite child. I also like there's also the found drama bit, which that's just funny.
I think JOI's filmography is just hilarious. Like, every time we get little bits and pieces of his, movies, like, I imagine them, and then I imagine most of them just seem as jokes because they're, like, super art housey. What was it called?
Yeah.
A really good name for the type of movies he was making where the story just has a lot of different threads, and then none of them resolve at the end.
Yeah, yeah, and then there's the joke one
Joke.
where it's
It's called The Joke.
Yeah, the joke I was gonna say that was a thing I actually liked in the book was the joke where he's like, "We're gonna record the audience, and it lasts as long as the audience is willing to sit
And
there."
he and Mario just have to leave as soon as they're all gone, and they're just running along with their they have to make it half across the crunchy for the next showing.
I like the just like I can see the snobby theater geeks just like going in there and just refusing to leave as they discuss how brilliant what's happening is.
It's like yeah, commenting that like they're the ones who just aren't understanding how elevated it is, and it's like, no, he's just literally recording you. It's not that.
He's just messing with you, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, one could argue that those are exactly the type of people who are currently reading the book Infinite Jest.
Yeah, I think almost I think we
Uh,
discussed this in the notes that a lot of his, the last episode, a lot of his movies are, events from his own real life, and they're metaphors for the Infinite Jest itself. I think that one really kind of is, because
Mhm.
if you're gonna sit through and read this kind of book, you have to look at yourself while you're reading it, right?
Yeah.
I looked at our
A-
relationship here and I said, "Is it worth it to keep reading this for Huron?" And I said, "Yes, but just barely."
I'm very happy you stuck through, what you did read. I wouldn't have blamed you if you stopped.
um, I was expecting you to. I was expecting you like I think Tora got like 6% in, he said.
Yeah.
And I was kind of expecting you to be like, yeah, that's it. I'm gonna go read Worm again or something.
I don't know, I kind of said last time, I think this book's difficulty is really overstated.
I definitely don't think it's difficult in a way. Well, parts of it are difficult, and some parts are not. He changes the difficulty on you frequently, where he's like, "This is like one solid small story about one person that you understand and that makes sense," and it's like, and then we're gonna change that and switch it, and you barely catch that there's a change because there's a space, but we're gonna talk about this one thing that is very specific to only tennis players understanding, and you just have to pretend like you know everything that's going on and who these people are and why you should even care about them in the first place. Because half the time it's like there once was a homeless man who told somebody that they should do something smart, and then they decided to do it and it worked out for them. And then you get all the. It's just that part is the more difficult part, I think, to me. That he changes the difficulty level on certain things, and then like, I mean, he's purposely messing with you. He has to be. There's no way you could purposely write a book like accidentally write a book like this,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right?
I agree completely. And like, I think Ash talked about it last episode is like the length of some of these sentences. Notice those ones that are
Uh,
like pages long or like several paragraphs long, almost always in the head of probably not Steeply, but who's the dumb guy with the brick head? Gately. Thank you. It's
Gately.
usually in the head of Gately, who is incredibly uneducated and an alcoholic since he was a kid, basically. Sad
Yeah.
story.
No, that was Yeah, there was one sentence that I read, and that's something that was driving me crazy is the long sentences where you just don't feel like you can stop. You just have to be like, no, I'm taking a break in the middle of this sentence. Like, I deserve a 5-minute walk around my office in the middle of this sentence because it's just that's the way it is.
Yeah,
Like,
you finish the sentence like, oh, I need a cigarette now.
I don't even finish the sentence. I was like, I don't even understand what's happening in the first half of the sentence, let alone let me get to the end. No, the sentence with Lucian where he
Oh, that was one of my
dies. I
favorites.
had to read that one like I had to read that thing is so long. It's like I would really love to meet David Foster Wallace and just hand him a book full of periods and be like, here's all the periods you forgot in your book. Like you can fit them in wherever you want. But like please use them in the future, I mean, he does though, and there's other spots, but just coming off of that long sentence, I was like, please let me teach you about this grammar.
You're
That's
saying
not
Avril
here.
wouldn't approve of the Gately sections.
I don't know, probably.
I
Although that one was just weird, that long sentence. I
Lucian.
was like, whoa, this is very graphic. Yeah.
I'm not kidding. That's one of my favorite. I think that the Marath was actually the guy who killed him, just because he's one of the members of the group and forgot that there. I think there was like a small clue in the sentence. It doesn't really matter, but he was killed by the wheelchair assassins. The final sentence of Lucian.
Yeah, I mean, I know he was killed by the wheelchair
I heard the
assassins, but
squeak.
like, there was no digging for clues in that sentence.
I think it's funny how he managed to make the wheelchair assassins seem genuinely menacing in that scene.
Because they just got seen like jokes before. It's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
I think Steepley says that sometimes they pick a place to meet at the top of a mountain, and the wheelchair assassin would be there waiting already.
Yeah, he said they picked the weirdest spot, so they were on an oil rig in the middle of the ocean once. And it's like, why would you pick this spot? It's just to prove that there's nothing wrong with them. And I'm like, well,
Yep.
hard be it for me to complain about your guys' choice of venue, but like, you can be comfortable out there no matter what
Have
is going
either of you
on.
read the
Right.
origins of the wheelchair assassin yet?
I don't think so.
Is it by David Foster Wallace?
It's in this book. It's just that
Oh.
the end note is in the 300s, and in earlier end notes they point you to the later end note that explains the origin of the wheelchair assassins.
No, I haven't
Okay,
read
it's
it
pretty
yet,
good.
then.
I don't want to talk about it yet.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah, like yes, like all of these feelings, like David Foster Wallace is trying to get out of us. It feels like everything is deliberate, right? He's like a malicious genius with how he's writing. It's like, what could this guy have accomplished if he'd used his powers for good?
Yeah.
Well, I think this book has changed people's lives.
It has, absolutely, and it deeply connects with a lot of people. But
I'm very surprised.
You're surprised after reading the.
I'm surprised that some people connect with it as much as they do. It's good for them. I just have a hard time seeing anybody meaningfully connecting with parts of it. Because he talks,
So-
I mean, his main things are like addiction and entertainment. I mean, as far as I can understand, and I am but a poor, simple book reader who doesn't look in these types of books too often because they're just not enjoyable, and that's what I read for is for fun, to enjoy. But
so I don't know, you can finish your thoughts, sorry.
oh, I was just saying, like, so I see where somebody who like really struggled with some addiction or something like that, or could really resonate, but it just is so far kind of removed from me. It's not there for me.
I think this book,
Yeah, 'cause as I
other
was going
than
to say that, let me finish my sentence here, and then I'll let you get in yours. Yeah, so I was going to say, like I know people whose minds erase like this. Like this is just kind of like the run-on sentences. That's just kind of like how they think, and they kind of sometimes feel trapped or whatnot in their thoughts. And addictive personalities and whatnot. I mean, personally, like there have been sections in this book that I've like been like, damn, that actually does reach out to a part of me. And there are also are also sections that are genuinely quite funny, right? And interesting to read. So like while I'm not like 100% the person this book is written for, like I can see that person, and sometimes I can be that person. But yeah, it always feels well written to me, which is something that I can appreciate even if I'm currently angry at David Foster Wallace.
okay, I'll say this book is not written for me. I don't struggle with addiction. I don't have a lot of neuroses. I don't struggle with depression. I don't think I'm addicted to entertainment. Maybe I am. But even despite all those things, like I've said many times, this is one of my favorite books. And I think, other than maybe Lazen, um, I think this book is a lesson in empathy precisely because of how well written it is and how close we get to all these people and their POVs and their struggles and their backstories and depression or neuroses or addictions or whatever it is. Um, I find it very intellectually stimulating. I know I said it wasn't very difficult, and that I meant that on a sentence level, but thinking about the book, thinking about how it's written, and connecting the motifs and connecting the themes, uh, thinking about the structure, and piecing these bits and pieces together, I find very satisfying. And I said this last episode, but I think the first time I read it, I wasn't really digging it first half, but once it clicked, like I was completely on board. And even all of those things, I consistently found it funny. At the very least, there's that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's well said.
Yeah.
Do we want to
Um,
talk about the infamous AA section?
The AA section that doesn't stop.
I mean, the section where I think it was before Interdependence Day.
the section where um, there's this girl telling the story of her life and saying that like, I was forced to be addicted,
That
right?
one
That
and
one.
the one after about the lady who was carrying around her, what'd you call it? Yeah.
Stillborn baby.
Oh, yeah.
Any thoughts about that?
Yeah.
Would you want to tackle the one with Raquel Welch first? Yeah,
She's
she
the
was the
first one,
first
right?
one.
Yeah. Um, I liked that one. I liked that like I liked both the story and like how kind of bizarrely horrifying it
It was
was.
like a lot in
Um,
the book. It was bizarrely horrifying and funny at the same time, and then you felt like
yeah.
a slight guilt for laughing at it so much.
Yes. Yes. And then I really liked Gately's response to it. Um, and just kind of like the acknowledgement in that group that yes, well, terrible things have happened to you. Like that's you can't just blame them for your problems because then you'll just never get out from it, you know? Like at some point you just kind of have to take a radical amount of responsibility for your own life and your own character and just kind of move on as horrible as that is.
Eh,
I really like that mindset, and I think
Yeah.
it's productive.
It's
I'll say.
important for, I guess, suppose AA and what their whole mantra and what they're going for, and he's bought into the whole thing. Um, I love how he said that the word that causes everybody there to cringe is because because of this, because of this, because of this.
Yeah.
Love the crocodiles.
Yes.
Any thoughts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey. Well, I mean, I thought the AA sections as a whole were interesting. They were just surprising that we had this kind of shift into it. Maybe we didn't. Maybe it was there before, and since I skipped it, I missed it. But like seeing Gately to go to the AA and then be like, at the beginning, he's like, I don't know, it just seems weird to me. But then he's like, but it works. I just keep
Mhm.
going and it works. And then he talks about it like it's a grand system, like specifically designed to trap people in. And the way he describes it is just it was so weird and interesting. Where he's just like all of his mantras and like his sayings about it, where it's just like, do it because it works, or you just
Yeah.
do it and show up, and then when he's listening to the stories of the other people and he's like, oh, this person doesn't get it because this person is just saying all these other things. I
No,
remember
I think you're
exactly
talking
what
about
it was,
Erdeddy
but they're
because
just like,
Erdeddy's like, I need you to define what alcoholism is to me. Because to me, the AA definition of alcohol includes everybody on the planet. Because if somebody is not willing to admit that they have an addiction, it means that they have an addiction.
But there's
yeah.
also
Well,
the
there's like two speakers back to back, and
Mhm.
one is like everybody cringes for him and has like the embarrassment. He's like, it's so
Yeah.
interesting that you can watch somebody die 1,000 deaths from embarrassment on the side, and then the next person gets up and everybody's like, yeah, this. And the first guy, I don't remember what he said exactly, but the second guy's like, I went through this and I did this, and everybody's like, yeah, getting it and liking it. And then it was just so interesting seeing him the way he talks about it, just being like, it's a machine. And he's like, do I want to get out? Am I supposed to get out? What am I supposed to do with this? How am I supposed to do this? How am I like? It just was a really weird but
What do you like into it?
interesting
A box of
and kind of
that was
yeah.
like when Gately's recounting what one of the crocodiles I think said to him. It's like just bake the cake. Here are the instructions on the box of cake mix. You'll get a cake at the end. You don't need to believe that you'll get a cake in the end. You don't need to believe in the instructions. That's okay. Just do them. Just bake the cake.
Yeah, and then he does it, and then his whole thing with God being like, I don't know what God like, and it's just like, okay, it doesn't matter. Like that's clearly what everyone's trying to tell you is it doesn't matter if you believe in the higher power or not. Do what works for you. But he's just
He gets on
like,
his knees in the morning
it
and
was,
prays to this thing that he doesn't believe in, gets on his hands and knees and says, "Please give me strength." At the end of the day, he gets on his hands and knees and says,
yep.
"Thank you." This thing that he doesn't believe in.
And he's
Yeah.
like, it's just like, yeah, he's just like, it's a recording, and he's like, at the end of the day, I don't feel anything. I feel nothing, and everybody's like, great, keep going, like, keep doing it. And he's just like, okay, I guess I
I
will,
guess he gets
like,
standing
Yeah,
ovation or
he
whatever.
goes in and
yeah. And he's like, I was
trying to
trying
get
to
kicked
like
out.
say it was false, but nobody believed me. Yeah.
I was determined to get kicked out. I went in there and I just yelled every single obscenity I could, told them I think are a bunch of phonies and that this whole thing is a joke. They gave me a standing ovation. I think they said like sincerity is the only real currency in AA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That's something I appreciate about like being around people who have like really been through the bad stuff, right? Um, like they know what's real and what's not. Like if nothing else, that's something that they might have learned from their experiences. I think I think it can be very valuable, despite like no one actually wanting to go through what they went through, right?
Right. Well, I mean, generally nobody wants to go through the bad stuff.
Right?
That's
Yeah.
oh,
as good as it is for you in the end, it could be good for you in the end. Nobody is, usually willingly is like, let me go through that really horrible, crappy situation just for the potential promise of a better hope at the end of it.
Right.
I want to mention one line that I loved from the Raquel Welch story is when Gately was thinking at the end. Um, he was talking about how the real thing was the self pity and people pitying her for that. He said it wasn't that the fact that her childhood was that bad because I know people whose stories in here make that story look like a life at the weekend at the Poconos.
Yeah.
Like
I remember that
wow,
line.
oh my goodness. But the stillborn story, were you ever shocked by that? That one stuck with me for years. I say years because I only read it for the first time last year. I think it will stick with me.
I mean, it was shocking, but not. I mean, it wasn't that shocking to me. I mean, it was just another
Okay.
scene. Sorry, I mean, it just didn't stick. That one didn't connect with me at all. I think one of the only scenes that's really, really connected to me was the in the very first of the book. There's a girl in a psych ward talking about addiction and like how she gets over it and then she's like, oh, and then it pulls me back. It's just not like it pulls her back, but like she gets so used to it, and then she just tries it, and then she slips back in all the way, and then that's the
Mm.
only one I think that's really resonated with me at all. Like there
Van
was a
Dyne?
like impactful kind of in a way.
Well,
I do not remember her name. I think she was an unnamed girl in a psych ward.
with Psych Ward's probably
Yeah, probably the same chapter when the guy who's insisting that he doesn't know what they mean when they say alcoholic is talking. Right? Like is it
Yeah, it's from the psych ward guy's perspective, and he's writing down his notes
Kate
about
Gompert?
what he thinks it
Oh,
could be.
Kate Gomper.
Sure, yeah, Kate. Yep, that sounds more right than the other name. So,
She's talking about her depression in that one, I think.
and then the marijuana takes it away, and then
Hmm.
but then it comes
Yeah,
back.
then later
Yeah,
her and
but like I
Erdetti go
said,
to
that's
a AA meeting that's mostly for marijuana users. One's like, you get addicted to marijuana. Kind of all looked down upon by the other users.
is that the one where they're like where he's yelling at him because he's like, you can't be addicted to marijuana. It's not even a hard drug or whatever.
Yeah, something like that. Oh, that was the section with the hugs,
Yeah,
not drugs, and Erdetti.
oh, he was so mad about that.
It's
He's
one of my
like,
favorite sections.
"Go, you will take hugs. You think I
You
want
think
the
I
hugs
stay
out
here wanting to
here?
give out hugs? They tell us hugs, not drugs in here. I'm gonna give you a hug. At the end,
I'm the one who would be like honestly and earnestly like wanting just to hug everybody anyway. Like,
Awesome.
yes.
Yeah, I thought that was I thought that was funny because it's kind of a reflection of like what Gately is doing as well. It's just like this is what they tell me to do. That clearly following what I want to do has not led me anywhere good.
almost like the ego just wants to feel
So
pleasure
we're
all the
gonna
time.
hug right now. Yeah. Yeah.
I assume your thoughts on
Well,
Gately
not.
have changed over the past 50% of the book. Yes.
Mine, yeah. Yeah. I'm always fine with people redeeming themselves or rehabilitating themselves. Like that's
Mhm.
something that I like. I don't know if everyone's capable of it, but I would like everyone to be capable of it.
I like good stories, redemption, and Gately seems genuinely. I want to say nice because he still has his own problems, like racism, for example.
Yeah.
Like so racist, he doesn't know. He
I
has
think one of
no
the
idea.
footnotes were like, growing up, Don Gately didn't know any other words for black people.
Yeah, he
No,
still
he doesn't.
doesn't. I think.
Yeah, that was kind of a surprise to see that actually written out. I mean, not that it was like you just don't see it too often. It was just like, whoa, okay, this is a character here.
Mhm. Yeah, like he's lived a life entirely on the wrong side of the tracks, and that's reflected in just everything that he is and knows. He doesn't even know, like the story of him
Oh,
cooking.
his cooking story is
is
so
so
good.
horrifying.
Love how
It's the kind of cooking that really makes you appreciate the drinks.
the comments from people. How long does he boil the spaghetti? Like an hour.
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, gross.
Oh, the comments are so good too. Everybody likes him anyway, so they're kind of just they don't want to offend him.
They like him, and also he's like 300 pounds with a perfectly square head. They don't want to.
you
You don't want to mess. You don't want to piss someone like that off,
you
right?
moved by his addiction story or how he got addicted.
Um, yeah,
You'd
I
have
liked
to
it.
refresh me.
Is that Chesky?
It reminded me of BoJack Horseman.
Did you say Chesky?
I said you're gonna have to remind me exactly which one it was
Well,
or
his
what it
mother
was.
was dating some military guy. I forgot what he called him. Every night, his mother would get drunk, and he would drink part of the bottle so that she wouldn't drink everything. And that became an
Right.
addiction of him kind of trying to help out his mother not drink as much. Told me.
I remember that. Yeah. All right, Ash. I got a question for you as the philosopher here.
Oh yeah.
The pea soup story between Marathe and Steepley, where Steepley's like, well, what about can they go buy a can of soup if he pays for it? And it's like, no, there's just one can of soup ever for these kids. The guy brought it to them. He made it. He died. He gave it to them. He can't, and
You
it's
can't
just
share it.
like you can't share it. It's like oh my gosh, like what's your ping? Because I was like, I get what you're trying to say, Marathe, but like a little bit of context or like real worldness would be appreciated here. Like,
Ah.
soup doesn't just fall out of the sky and hit two kids, and they have to
Mm.
decide between it with no other possible choices ever. You know what I mean? But I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. I mean, that's what thought experiments are attempting to do. They're trying to like reduce, like like regular
Reduce the
experiments.
biggest to the smallest, right?
You try to reduce the amount of variables you have to consider until it's just ideally one thing, and you can just like look at that one thing and think, okay, how do how does this one thing work? Um,
Mhm.
I I agree that thought experiments can be unhelpfully reductive though. And it really depends on which one you're talking about. And then like they can be used in really misleading ways to, you know, like sometimes you it seems like you're isolating for one variable, but you're not. And then at the end of things, like really all they're going to do is they're going to tell you how people are instinctively feeling about the problem, and then those people are not going to change their mind about it, because that's generally not how humans work, especially when it comes to things like morality. You just kind of like have a gut feeling, and then you're like, okay, I'm just going to justify this or not, with
Right,
logic
yeah.
and whatnot.
It's a gut feeling, and then you back justify it with other
Yeah,
thoughts, right? Yeah.
yeah,
Well, that's what I was like. It's like it's nice, but like you said, like it could be very unhelpful if it's just like, well, it's A or B. Well, I mean, in real life, there's like a lot more options than just A or B. Neither of us. I mean, in his example, of course, you can't have a neither of us want the soup because everybody loves pea soup.
pea soup, right?
French
Like,
French Canadian pea soup. Everybody has to get a taste of that. It's the most delicious, best soup you've ever seen
I
in your
think that's a
life. I was like, no,
I think it's
thank
a
you.
very good example of why we need so many sections with Marath and Steeply. Because
I think they're the highlight of the book for me
interesting,
because
really.
they're always doing something. Well, I think they're the ones that have the most plot to them.
mm,
And as little as plot as it is, but they're the ones that have the most consistent through line where they're talking, things are developing, they talk some more, things have happened in the past. Marathe's like, hey, why don't you do this? Or like, I'm going to convince you that entertainment is bad and that we have a super weapon. And Steeply's like, I'm uncomfortable because I've dressed up like a woman again for every time I appear in this book. I might not be a man at all. I might just be a woman with a very masculine face, but like, I mean, I don't know exactly if he ever actually shows up not dressed up as a woman, but like,
No,
for a majority
in
of
all
them,
of his
he
sections, I
is. And
think
it's just
he's dressed
like,
up as a woman, and even when he meets Oren for their interview, he's Helen's deeply.
Yeah, Orin is just completely obsessed with him. That's so funny.
yeah. And so, like I said, I think that's why I like it so much is because they have like at least the semblance of a plot coming through the story. How it connects to Orin and everybody else, I have like zero idea why they intersect at all. But
You're
like,
right, and
they do.
their sections are how we kind of learn what the plot of the book is. How it connects with the other stories. You happen to learn little by little. Like for example, the Lucian part. That's how the wheelchair hasn't got their hands on the entertainment,
Yes, which is the P terminal.
and then they're trying to
Kills you.
find out the origin of the entertainment, and that's why Helen is talking with Orin, and that's why Orin is talking with Hal. Hal is the son of JOI, etc., etc., etc. Yeah, suppose you're right that the plot, like the spine of the story goes through those two, and then everything else is connecting out from that. Yeah, going back to what I said is because we get so much information in each of their their POVs based on these ideals, the Quebecois versus the American individualism versus the people who are, I don't know, working in a more communal way. We get more and more context and we get a better view of what there is. So it's not as reductive when we're given a pea soup thought experiment. Also, Marath is absolutely right.
I think so. I mean, and I think David Foster Wallace agrees with Marath for the most part in here because, like, I think that's what the AA sections are for, right? Like, these people have acknowledged that just going it alone is not working for them, and it seems to me that, like, in the world of Infinite Jest, there are more and more people who, like, due to various technologies or whatnot, just are like no longer able to make good decisions for themselves. They're always going to go for the candy in the store rather than the delicious pea soup.
Just the A section,
So,
that is the best
I mean,
example of that.
yeah, and he also talks about in the context of like just rampant advertising and whatnot. Like
He takes a shot at Netflix.
yeah, before Netflix is even a thing. That's so funny.
Well,
Yeah,
it was like the blockbuster Netflix where it's like, yeah, it was.
it's like Netflix's early business model, which is so funny. You just like you pay for the subscription service and they like send you physical DVDs in the
They still
mail.
do that, don't they?
Amazing.
There's you have to be on a higher
They don't
tier
do it
or they've
in
cut it
Japan,
out
but
completely.
I think some places you can still do that.
Yeah. And there are those like hostile advertisements that are like they're good at what they do. They just traumatize you.
Showing like the most grotesque facial industries and injuries.
Yeah, like Hal just like
Using
starts
tongue
compulsively
scrapers.
flossing.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
year where everybody had a tongue scraper and a
yeah.
backup tongue scraper.
That's what advertisers are for, though, to make you buy a product whether you need it or not. And the best way to do that is fear.
How do you feel?
Fear or anger.
Okay, out of the we already know Cesky's answers for which of the three main heads are most engaging. Ash, how about you?
I don't know that I find one thread more engaging than the other. Like I find characters more engaging than others, though. Like I really like Joelle, obviously. I really
There's
like
actually two of them.
I really like Marath and Steeply's conversations, but they're never like the highlight for me. I liked Mario's section in Mario's film here. And then I liked the game of Eschaton, actually. The game of Eschaton has been my favorite part of the
Tons
book
of fun
by far so far.
Such a weird section.
Her lips here.
All these crazy things going on with that. It was just like pages of pages, and I'm like, I cannot understand any of this. What's going on?
It just made the little board gamer in me very happy.
Yeah.
I was like, I
no, that's
want to
revel
play
in
this
the
game
language.
now.
I always found it really interesting.
You You only need 200 to 300 really, really worn out tennis balls. Perfect. Everybody's got that. Like,
And then like that you have these like different colored socks. Like the white socks are nuclear silos or submarines or whatever, and then the like red socks are industrial capabilities such as like whatever, like
yeah,
just an excessive amount of rules, and all they're using is tennis equipment. That's so funny to me.
yeah. It's like the game. You're like, well, I just I'm gonna play, take rock paper scissors, but oh wait, I also have a bomb. Oh well, I have industrial work centers to counter your bomb. Like that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like to me. It's just like it started as a regular game, and then it just like blew up and like expanded. Okay, actually, this was this is very different. But that one kid, what's his name, who basically holds a gun to his head for every
Love that
game,
story.
every tennis match
Oh,
he
yeah.
plays. And I'm like, how is this even like? I'm like, okay, David Foster Wallace, I'm trying to understand you a little bit here, but like, no person in the world would let this match count for one or like play for another. For like, you're literally holding a gun, or you go flex your gun on somebody who serves you well, and you're like, let me go, yeah, check the ball, okay, I'm good, like, put it back in the box, and then like, it's like, I'm like, it's got to be it's got to be metaphorical. Like he's just told them he's going to kill himself. Then he very explicitly says, like, oh no, he played with the gun to his head, perfected the serve, and I'm
Mhm.
like, this is a step too far in the all the unrealistic things I'm believing in this story already. I'm sorry. It was crazy. That's what it was.
Yeah, it was. I liked that section because it's just a good metaphor, you know?
It's really good. It plays into Lamont Chu's like whole problem as well too. Well, Lamont Chu was talking with Lyle
Oh
about
yeah.
wanting to be famous. Oh, okay,
Hey, I have that section
want to read
highlighted.
it?
Yeah. I do want to read it. Thank you. Um this is near the end of their conversation. Lamont, the world is very old. You have been snared by something untrue. You are deluded. But this is good news. You have been snared by the delusion that envy has a reciprocal. You assume that there is a flip side to your painful envy of Michael Chang, namely Michael Chang's enjoyable feeling of being envied by Lamont Chu. No such animal. Animal? You burn with hunger for food that does not exist. This is good news? It is the truth. To be envied, admired is not a feeling, nor is fame a feeling. There are feelings associated with fame, but few of them are any more enjoyable than the feelings associated with envy of fame. The burning doesn't go away? What fire dies when you feed it? It is not fame itself they wish to deny you here. Trust them. There is much fear in fame. Terrible and heavy fear to be pulled and held, carried. Perhaps they want only to keep it off you until you weigh enough to pull it towards yourself.
How's a bro? I like
I
how it's
like that section a
interspersed
lot.
with the puppet show. Like, during the puppet show, like people who are having problems go downstairs and talk to Lyle, and they come up, and the next guy comes, and they go and talk to Lyle, and they come back up.
Yeah.
Who's the guy? I think it was Stice, the Darkness, whose bed was moving, or whose furniture in his room was moving at night.
Yeah, that was a funny scene where he's like, I must be psychic and moving my
It's
stuff in my
important, by the
sleep.
way.
Yeah.
It's funny.
It's just funny.
Um,
It's just like he came up with 3 scenarios, and it's like all 3 of these are like
It's
more
something I love in this
ridiculous than the
story that we
last.
pick out
yeah.
during this time is that the Statue of Liberty is carrying the year's product in her hands, which I think is just fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. Before subsidized time. Yes. Um I liked the initial campaign promises of
Honey Gentle.
I don't remember the president's name, but we're gonna launch our garbage into space, and I'm gonna find us an enemy.
Honey Gentle. Oh,
They're out there somewhere.
was it he
Yeah.
was trying to get the Great Concavity to work, and what he did, he threaten to kill himself, and so like everybody would he threatened to do something like really drastic until everybody agreed to his demands to set up the Great Concavity, Great Convexity. But
I don't
the whole
remember.
section with the
Sorry.
uh, little stick figure puppets is just golden and funny. I love the dialogue they set up
Yeah.
because apparently it's not real, but it's like something that everybody believes could actually happen, knowing the president.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, all the things that the president is
Yeah.
supposedly saying in his puppet show in the movie. Yeah.
Yeah. I got the feeling that David Foster Wallace was not a big fan of Ronald Reagan.
I don't think so.
Well, Ash, you read a good sentence that David Foster Wallace wrote. Allow me to read you what I deemed was a bad sentence that I marked with a why. Why is this important at all in the book so far? All right, you ready? It's a
Yes.
short one. He actually used a period here. An ETA female students wear 2 different towels coming in. A breastless senior who can barely perspire at all is troubled whenever she has lunch with her fiance by the persistent whine of a mosquito that she can't see and no one else can hear. That's the full sentence. I was like, oh, it was a start, and it was like 2 or 3 things that I'm just like, weird, extra weird. Didn't really need to know that the female students wear 2 different towels. Only when coming in, I'm just that was an example of a bad sentence. I'm sorry, Ash. Yours was great though. I liked your sentence
those
a
are
lot
some
more than that one.
pretty good sentences,
Yeah,
actually.
mine sounds really good. It's like I think I remember reading that sentence to me like Lyle just got a lot more icky, you know?
Lyle's really icky.
For some reason, like my mind doesn't get bothered with him licking boy sweat, but
Well, Lyle's obsessed with people's sweat levels.
yes. He wants to lick the sweat.
He does lick the sweat, yeah.
He has licked the sweat.
Yeah.
That's gross.
It's really gross.
I'm just gonna say it. That's gross.
Yeah, he's a bizarre
You
guru.
don't.
I mean, he gives
You
good
don't find
advice,
humor in
which I
the
guess is-
tiny, slightly odd details.
I usually find that most authors are trying to write the important things in a way that they're trying to go for, they're trying to condense things so the things you read are the most important things you could be reading. Now, it kind of a brevity is wit, right? Or wit is brevity. And David Foster Wallace seems to be taking the opposite, where he'll just talk about things that are just like that sentence is just like blah 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 blah, and then we're like, okay, it wasn't really that important. Maybe it was a little bit, but it's not like he's trying to condense
he's
it.
definitely
He's just
a maximalist
word
style.
spewing. Yeah.
Why?
Like
Yeah,
everything
he's
he can think is
definitely-
important at all gets put in, even if it's really not that important.
He's deliberately breaking one of the core rules of writing.
Why do you think he
to
does that?
some good and some bad effects, I think.
Why
Sometimes
do you think he does that?
in this case, he's going for a very particular kind of style and trying to produce an effect. To me, the biggest reason is in a world where you're just kind of inundated with stimuli, it's very easy to get overwhelmed. And so he's trying to overwhelm the reader and produce an effect that's reminiscent of the setting that he's doing, and also like kind of a reflection of modern life with how things are and how he fears that they could be, and then trying to extract like out of this absurdity like a vision of the world that kind of makes sense to him and in which he can still convey meaningful things to
I think it's
to
very well
people.
put. I don't really have much to add other than I think
Thank you.
all the example that you gave is relevant to what Ash said. I think the maximalist style in this kind of story gives the reader a more something yet lived-in experience, a more closer, visceral point of view than other stories. Like you said, that you're inundated with information, and the way that you have to read the book is parsing the important bits out of the details. Also, it's just funny.
And often deliberately inappropriate.
Yeah. There's definitely a couple of those at least.
Any thoughts about the notes?
Footnotes. I was less bothered by them this time, mostly because we got. I think found drama was done through footnote, and I really liked found drama, and but I mean there was a couple that were like multiple pages long again, and yeah, that's explaining the reasons for the strategy behind the Quebecois separatists.
Yeah, that
right?
one's the one.
Yeah, I mean that was actually interesting. I thought that was good. Although I think like Pemulus at some point breaks in on the footnote and is like, "Val, we
They're
have
trying
to
to
go."
smoke their Bob Hope.
Yeah, and I always hate it when people are deliberately not punctual. So this was bothering me. This was the little fly that was buzzing in the room that
You're irritated Hal for not finishing his conversation with Oren so you can go smoke Bob Hope.
Like you made plans, you made a commitment. Follow the commitment. or cancel the plans. You know,
I mean, yeah, I was on Pemulous' side as well. Teenage kids wanting to go out.
Pemulous is just,
Pemulous is fantastic. I
he's
love
just right.
Pemulous.
Yeah.
How about you, Chesky? Any thoughts on the
My
footnotes?
footnotes are that less than 50% of the time they're slightly interesting and like actually like what a footnote should be and providing influence or insight into something. Contrary to what Ash thought, I liked it slightly more than him at the beginning, where he reads off the technical names for all the drugs, then just like tells you, oh, this is Tylenol or this is ibuprofen, like gives you what the actual are. Like it's like, okay, this is like fine, if that's what you're gonna do. But then I find the other footnotes are all basically he just was like, I want you to have to click a thing or like switch to the back of the book to read this, even though it fits perfectly in line with whatever I'm telling you. Like it wouldn't
Right.
bat an eye if he had literally cut and pasted the footnotes out of the footnote section and just put them in the story. It wouldn't
You wouldn't
read
be
as
forced to
any
go to the back.
different to me. Well, I reading it on my ebook have a little click the
Alright.
footnote and it pops up for me. But I still have to do that, and I still think it doesn't change the fact that you could just literally insert them and it wouldn't really change
But
anything.
then it wouldn't
That's-
Yeah, I mean,
resemble a
he's
game of tennis
deliberately
where you have to
breaking the
go
flow of
back and
reading.
forth and
Forth,
back and
back,
forth.
I guess, but I mean, that's not why I read books, is to resemble games of tennis. So
I think you're not
if I want to
you're not reading
resemble a
enough
game of tennis, I'll go
tennis
watch a game of tennis.
tennis books.
No, sorry, tennis is one of my my great misses in life. It just never yeah.
Never called to you.
No, never. In fact, if it has called, it said something similar to like, "Go away, stay away, leave me alone."
I like how, speaking of tennis, how Oren switches out of tennis into being a football punter, entirely so he can impress Joelle.
That's a good story.
Mhm.
Yeah, like the most beautiful woman he's ever seen. And at this point, he's trying to impress possibly the ugliest, not even a girl, and steeply.
He'll sleep with anything. I think he's a sex addict.
Yes. I don't know if I mentioned this on the other episode, but I really like Hal's interjection. Like Oren always calls him and says, "We need to talk about the subject and how I'm going to seduce the subject." And Oren and Hal says, "You refer to subject, but you mean object." Which going back to philosophy, the subject object duality is one of the bigger fundamental ones that. That happens.
Yeah, over here I need to mention during the very last conversation of the last one, I missed a joke, but Wikipedia told me he's cutting his toenails into the and he said it feels like an exercise in telemetry. Telemetry. Yeah. Because he's
Mhm.
Telemachus in the story of Odysseus, searching for it. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
so
it's
good.
right?
I didn't get it at the time, and I felt so stupid. That's a good joke. That's a really good joke.
Sure.
Oh, did
Yeah,
we?
great joke.
Did I?
So
Did I?
fun.
I don't think I talked about it in the last
Oh,
episode.
good. I laughed out loud for minutes when I read that section. 100%.
I think you're
yeah.
joking.
Yeah,
Your
yeah,
joke is not nearly as funny as Hal's
well,
joke.
his joke was not nearly as funny to me as my joke was
How about
to me.
the?
So.
I think he was talking with Oren at one point, and they're talking about the mosaic, the Byzantine pornography on the wall of Onan.
Did they talk about that here?
Maybe that was the last section. That was one of my
I
favorite
don't
jokes,
know.
though, because they were talking about
I know it's been
the
mentioned.
tennis players
It might
satisfying
have.
their seed.
Sorry, it all blurs
Yeah, whatever.
together when you.
It's funny, trust me. They're talking about tennis players like playing to their seed, and that there's in the section that there's Byzantine erotica piece on the wall of Onan. In the Bible, he was known for not spilling
I
his seed
think I
and getting in
remember
trouble
it.
for
I
it.
don't remember it being particularly
Well,
funny.
you didn't laugh. You didn't
But,
laugh at the
remember-
Telemachus. Okay,
Well,
there's
that's
still.
because I didn't know that Telemachus was even a person before you said it a few seconds
read the
ago.
Odyssey, right?
No, even if I had, I don't think I'd remember one
It's
character's
pretty
name.
important.
Unless he's a major.
You probably
one.
remember Odysseus.
I remember Odysseus, yes, but
Yeah.
I mean, I've never read the Odyssey though, so
Or Ulysses.
no. And based on my reaction to this book, it's one book that's going to stay far, far away.
Well, there's a lot like Stephen in that book. I won't get into that because I'm going to talk about the Odyssey or Ulysses, but it's similar, I think. I can see your brain working, Ash. You're about to disagree with me.
Similar
trying-
to who?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
No, I'm trying to remember what else happens in this section. I finished it like
Mine was more than a week ago.
A little bit over a week ago.
I look through our previous notes.
And my mind
We talked about Eschaton?
Going. I liked.
I guess we talked about
We
Eschaton.
did talk about Eschaton.
Yeah.
Although, like, I mean, I haven't said Like Pemlis was absolutely right about Eschaton. The map is not the territory, and you can't just have players hitting each other during a game. This is how you ruin games. This is how you ruin like good things that are happening. And Lord and Ingersoll are bad people, and Lord deserved to have his head shoved into a computer, and Ingersoll deserved to just be pelted ruthlessly with tennis balls until he couldn't move anymore.
I agree. Ingersoll was terrible, and
I did think it was funny how he was just like nuking Israel over and over again. It's like a non-player. I'm just playing my character, man.
Yeah, that's totally the.
Oh, going back to that long footnote with Oren, and another really funny joke was, I think Oren asked Hal a couple of questions and said question A. There was a question A1 and A2, and this is also inside a footnote, and the footnote also has sub footnotes inside the footnote. So Hal was calling out Oren for having
Yes.
a question with a sub question inside a footnote with a sub footnote. That
Whoa.
had a big chuckle.
That was borderline traumatic. The probably the thing I laughed at the most in this part was the descriptions of the courses that the ETA teachers give. Let's see, there was last spring's airless and redolent section of Thode's psychopolitical offering, The Toothless Predator, Breastfeeding and Sexual Assault, had been one of the most disorientingly fascinating experiences of Ted Shate's intellectual life so far outside the dentist chair. And then there's also the personal is the political is the psychopathological, the politics of contemporary psychopathological double binds, where there's the it's like you're a kleptomaniac, but you're also agoraphobic. You have to steal, but you can never
The
go
prorector's
outside.
stupid classes.
Yeah.
So good though.
That was beautiful. That was fantastic writing.
As one of the guys reading like
I love the mind
mail
that can come up
fraud.
with that. That's a mail fraud, yeah.
Like one of the sections, one of the A sections, Glenn. Everybody hates Glenn, but his higher power is Satan, and he carries around a candelabra and wears a cape.
Yeah. He's just he's an actual Satanist. Oh, that's so funny. Yeah.
Eric Clipperton's the guy with the gun.
Clipperton. Yeah, that's his name. Yeah, Clipperton.
I mean, we all know stories of people who like give up way more than they should in pursuit of, some kind of achievement, and then, hey, they get it, and this was not what I wanted. Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah, I thought.
Have you heard about the structure of the book? I think the silence is a no.
Huh?
The book was written in a fractal style. It's not as obvious on the first time through. What's the fractal triangle?
Gold ratio?
Triangle. Sierpinski triangle. A triangle inside a triangle inside a triangle inside a triangle. Okay, so
Sure.
the Infinite Jest is written in the shape of a Sierpinski triangle. The three main threads are the A group and A and Marathon Steeply. Inside those are tiny little smaller triangles of pieces that intersect with other bits. You get smaller and smaller and smaller pieces that are also resemble in a fractal style. I don't know. Maybe that'll help with your enjoyment of trying to imagine the structure of the story and how it's written as a fractal of pieces inside pieces that resemble pieces inside of pieces. Is that helpful at all?
It's tough for me to really envision what that means. Is that it was written as a fractal, like he wrote one section and he kind of delved into it and wrote another section, and he delved into it and wrote another section. I understand like what the fractal is, never ending, pattern, right? But
It
just
might help more if
equating
I
that to a story is what would be tricky for me. Is
I'll share in our
understanding
chat later somebody who wrote names and themes inside this
something about
triangle
it.
and how they fit together.
I'm surprised, now that you bring it up, that David Foster Wallace didn't insist that the book be printed in a fractal style.
Would that work?
It wouldn't. I think that's the. Yeah, I did absolutely zero research / prep work into starting to read this. So
Likewise.
yeah.
I read the foreword where the person was like, "I hated reading Infinite Jest for the first quarter and then became obsessed with it."
Did not happen.
You didn't even read the first quarter.
I read the first 12% about. I think that's it's a quarter of a quarter, right? So
Half of a quarter.
I did not become obsessed with the last 25 to
It doesn't count because
50%.
you didn't have the first
You can
half.
read it in a fractal way.
Oh, any thoughts on the non-linear narrative structure?
None that are new. I don't know. I mean, like nonlinear structures are pretty standard. I think Wallace could have tried harder to make that part unique.
I mean, he didn't need to make it any more unique. Any more unique just makes it that much more complicated and confusing for everybody else. All of us lay people just trying
We'll
to
have
read
more thoughts on that.
and see what it's about.
We go into questions
Sure.
then?
Let's
So Pura says, why was this book published and not sunk at 10 fashions and its legs? It says it has a period, so it's 10.000. They're wrong, so I'm
Periods
gonna
are
read it as
often
10.
commas. Or
10 fashions and its legs in concrete.
10
It
fathoms.
says
right?
fashions.
I assume it was published because some editor or team of editors really thought they had something. And whether they were wrong or right, I guess, is up to debate. But in my opinion, they were wrong.
I mean, it's definitely sold enough copies.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if some disgruntled individuals have sunk it, like encased in concrete and sunk in the bottom of rivers. I think that if any books have been sunk into rivers, Infinite Jest has got to be like among them.
I mean,
maybe
that in itself is an accomplishment, getting it sunk into the bottom of a river by
Yeah.
people
It
who
does
had
have
that strong of
a
a reaction
reputation.
to it.
Yeah.
Mostly unfair, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, David Foster Wallace
I
had to know what he was.
I
What
think
kind of
you're
reaction
coming
he
at
would
it
prompt,
from
right?
like somebody who's engaging with the text on a good faith level. I think a lot of people hate the idea of Infinite Jest without having read
I think a lot of people react against a kind of perceived intellectual snobbery and just project Infinite Jest onto that without like
I think
having
a lot
any
of people
idea what
also
the book
see it
actually is.
as a hyper masculine, a toxic masculine. I don't think it's
Toxic
that at all.
masculine? That doesn't make sense to me.
yeah.
But okay.
I would say that this is a book that people hear people talking about, and then they're not mid-level readers, they're not high-level readers, they're like starting to readers, and then they read it and they get confused, and then they hate it, and then they're turned off from reading forever. And I think those would be the most vocal people, but I think that would be the highest subset of people who are actually reading it. Like that'd be the highest group of people who are reading it. It was a lot of people would see it and be, well, I don't know. I'm just talking out of myself here, right? But like, it's very easily for me to see that be like, oh, I've heard good things about this book by people who really like it, like Huron. And then they're like, oh, I'll read it and it'll be, and then they're hit with no plot. They're hit with deep characters. They're hit with weird but good writing style. And I could see it easily just turning a lot of people off to it and being like, it's too complicated. It's too confusing. I don't understand what's going on. And then being, vocal.
That I can understand.
Yeah, I buy that.
It also has a reputation of being a book that people just buy to look smart and
Yeah, exactly.
unread
And that
on
leads
their
to the
nightstand.
people other people say, oh, they're reading it. I should read it, even if, maybe they aren't.
Or the opposite reaction is like nobody's actually reading and liking
I
this.
hate that.
They're just trying to seem smart
I don't know how
about
many
it.
times I've seen that opinion. Ulysses and Infinite Jest. I've read them. But then you come in and you say I've read it, and
You
they're just
are
like,
unique
"Oh,
and
big
You just read
brain
it so you
here."
can say that you read it.
That's why. That's our long answer to your
Yeah.
silly 10 fashions question. Seth asks, "Do you have regrets yet reading this?" Cesky?
My answer is yes and no. No, I don't have regrets reading it because I get to talk about it with you guys, and I like that. Yes, I have regrets reading it because, as I said earlier, it literally killed
Okay,
all
which
other
one's
book reading in the month of April.
which one's
for
worse,
me.
this or Susanna Clark book?
No, Piranesi is miles better than this book. Miles better than this
Strange
book.
Mr. Norrell.
Than Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. That one is also miles better than this book.
Oh.
In
What
my
about Linguist Mages? Did you
If
choose
you
that one?
said it's worse than Linguist Mages, I might have to go to Utah and punch you.
well, I haven't read it, so I can't complain. But To be fair, I'd probably like Linguist Mages more than this one so far because I do enjoy a good plot.
It doesn't have a good plot.
Well, then I don't know yet. So, but yeah, like yes, because it killed my reading, but no, because I do like talking to people about it.
Okay, same guy asks, should endnotes
Oh,
be
I never got to
outlawed?
ask one of my
We could
regrets.
all.
That's
Oh,
so
sorry,
sad.
Ash.
Yeah, Ash, do you have regrets about not being able to answer your regrets question?
I regret coming on this episode so Huron could ignore me. When I was looking forward so much to answering the question about regrets.
No, I don't want you to answer.
But now we'll never get
Yeah.
to, and that's my biggest regret of
All right. So next question.
Should endnotes be
Should
outlawed?
endnotes be outlawed?
I mean, the endnotes aren't that bad in this one to me. Like, they're a lot of them are frivolous, but I don't think that they have to be kicked out for anything.
Are frivolous.
I think David Foster Wallace should have to pay some kind of fine for irresponsible use of endnotes, but I would still allow them to exist in this book. Yeah.
I like that. I like that idea.
See, it would make me it would lessen my frustration a lot with this book if like I could just make David Foster Wallace's life retroactively just a little bit worse.
Wow.
Whenever I got annoyed.
Every second that you've wasted with a footnote is $10 in the jar.
It's like I want like the top button to fall off your dress shirt or whatnot. I want you like your shirt sleeves to get dipped in like a kind of greasy soup that's really hard to get out, and so you have to buy a new shirt.
Yeah.
Next from Kiptan, he's asked, would you ever write a book like this? Would you ever want to write a book like this?
No.
Yeah. No.
Can you imagine like starting the writing process and be like, I'm going to make this a fractal experience, and then having to actually do something with that? No, I don't want to do.
I know
kind of book
personally. You go.
No, go ahead.
Sorry.
Okay.
I was gonna say I know that I personally can't. Okay, I'm gonna shut up for a second.
I like the kind of like I would love to write a series like Malazan or the Book of the New Sun. I do not want to write something like this. I would get annoyed with myself as I was writing it. I don't have the level of total arrogance that I think David Foster Wallace must have had to write this.
Yeah. I was gonna say that I know that I can't write a regular, like normal style book to any degree. So I would have absolutely zero chance of writing a book like David Foster Wallace, nor would I have any desire because I'm more of the opinion that I want more people to read my book and it to be very easily accessible to everybody. Everybody can come away understanding what I'm trying to say. And I think at some points he's very clear about what he's saying, but it's just he's very confusing about it a lot of the time.
Very lazy. And so I would like to have written a book like that. I don't want to write a book.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, this is a high effort endeavor.
Like I can't even imagine the process of him actually like trying to sit down and write this and be like, I'm gonna write this scene and it fits into this slot here in this it's like a connect like structure that he's like building from the inside out and being like it has to hover here in place until you get all these other pieces at the end of the book fit into it correctly and then it looks like something. But like no.
How long did he take to write this?
It took a decade.
It took a decade. Okay, this feels like a book that took a decade. Yeah.
You remembered something I wanted to say back in the footnotes section. I believe the only reason we have footnotes is because his original length was like 1,600 pages. He couldn't, print it, and so he cut out large sections and placed them in notes. Then I think he changed the structure of the book to fit in with the footnotes. I could be wrong.
Still a really big book, right?
It's still quite big. Yeah, I know it feels big when I'm clicking, and it's barely.
Just say his editor had him take a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
The stuff that he kept in, the editor said that he had good reason.
Well, I think that's fair. Good job, editor.
I was going to say I'm surprised he had an editor because it doesn't seem like something an editor would want to willingly subject themselves to and try and make better. Besides being like, can we just scrap it and focus on one of the three, or like?
Was the editor the same guy that was writing the meth addict that was writing those obscenely long headlines?
Oh, I love that section.
Yeah.
That reminded me of Aeolus, right?
Oh.
Ulysses. They went to the
Yes.
newspaper.
Okay. That part, like that's near the part where I left off.
Okay.
So you're
They're-
lucky.
They resembled each other a lot, I think.
Yep.
James Joyce influences he wears on his sleeve. Next question. Nat, why did you let Huron talk you into this, and what revenge are you planning? You guys don't have to share your
Yeah, the best
revenge. You
one's
could do that
surprise. Yeah.
between the two of you.
Because I like urine, and sometimes, more often than not, he gives me good racks.
In my defense, I mostly just give this as a recommendation as a joke. But thank you. I like you too.
I knew that I was going like I suspected I would have a difficult time with this book, and I strongly suspected that I would end up being glad I read it anyways, and that's still my feeling about it. And of course, talking on podcasts is also nice.
From Spook, if you could have David Foster Wallace write any other book series instead of the author who wrote / is writing that
This
series,
is a
what series
bonkers
would you
question to
have him
ask.
write?
Yeah,
I
I
love it.
probably wouldn't. I wouldn't trust him to write not a series, to just not write. I'll pay him to
Well, that's
not write
just
another
rude.
book.
You don't have to
Well,
read it. Other
I
people
can't
could
think.
enjoy it.
I can't think of a series that I would want to be twisted and malformed in a way like Infinite Jest is of any series that I've ever read before, and I don't want to. Okay, I guess he could rewrite The Seventh Seal by J. Thorne Pike or something, or J. Thorne, or is a very, very horrible, horrible, but much smaller book than this. And I don't think David Foster Wallace could make that one any worse. Although I could be surprised.
Ash?
As
Um,
my 0 star.
I like the one that's coming to mind right now is Stormlight. I just-
No.
Oh no! How dare you ever bring that up, Ash?
That
That
would
needs to
be
be
so
struck
funny.
from the record.
I would
Because
love to
like
see just like
there's
comparisons between them.
maybe just one book, maybe. Is it they're like maximalist
Yeah.
in like the
I
exact
mean, okay,
opposite ways?
we could make it Rhythm of
I'd love
War,
to see
and
that.
thus we remove the worst book from Stormlight, and also
Wow.
get to see what David Foster Wallace does with it.
Ash, cruel, cruel and wrong on so many levels.
I mean, you yourself complained about a lack of plot and boring characters, right?
I did not find Rhythm of War to have a lack of plot or poor
Like
character.
the authors being recklessly self-indulgent about things
I
that
thought I
nobody
think a
should
lot
care
of
about.
people didn't like the plot that was there, and that tainted their opinions on it. But I'm sorry you have such strong feelings, Ash. I wish I could fix that for you.
Yeah, I mean,
I gotta
there's probably also other fun answers to this question.
I mean, you could have him do the Bible.
I would buy David Foster Wallace taking it upon himself to rewrite the Bible.
I'd read that.
I wouldn't. I'm sorry. I'm just
The only thing I could think of is something that's incredibly long and
so like Malazan.
I would like to see him and Bill Watterson from Calvin and Hobbes co-write a novel together.
That is a weird pairing.
I mean, when you think about it, Calvin and Hobbes is very similar to Infinite Jest in tone, and also Bill Watterson is a very wholesome individual. I mean, like in Calvin and Hobbes, he's like Bill Watterson is also critical of a lot of the. I mean, not he's critical of a lot of things, right? He's critical of society in a lot of ways, and I think him and David Foster Wallace would have some interesting things to be critical about together. And also, Calvin, Calvin kind of feels like a character that could be an Infinite Jest a little bit, right? Like he's
I agree.
yeah, and
Totally, you're right. They're fairly similar.
I mean, Calvin Hobbes is better, of course. That's like the best comic strip ever made, but we can't all be geniuses.
Right. Next question. What have you been most number one fulfilling and number two frustrating parts of your experience in the book so far?
I mean, I can answer part of this. Most frustrating parts would have been reading the people who don't speak the right way, and he wrote it exactly how they'd be saying it instead of writing it right. That was very frustrating until I was like, okay, I basically just have to like read this section out loud, which I don't love doing, right? But I'm pretty sure my most fulfilling section will either be like when I shut the book for the final time, or when every section I finish is the most fulfilling. I'm done with that section. I
Oh,
can put
the
it
book
away. Done with the next
increasingly
section. I
gets
can put
more
it
and more
away.
fulfilling the more you read it.
So,
That's what you're saying.
except I lose all the fulfillment from the previous one when I finish it. So it's as soon as I start reading, all my fulfillment drains away because I'm like, I'm reading the next section, and it's no, maybe we'll see when I finish the book. We'll see.
I would there's that one drug addict section that I didn't enjoy at all. Yeah, it was just like a rambling stream of consciousness where like it probably could have made sense if I was feeling more focused at the time. I was reading it on my phone on the bus at the time, I think. And then yeah, I was completely out of caring at that moment. And then I opened the book and I started reading like I'm just gonna have to force myself through this section.
Yeah.
As far as most fulfilling goes, I'm not I'm not actually sure. Like this is not me talking down about the book. It's just like okay, to me it's probably the AA section where it's um all the things you learn in AA, right? And one of those things is just like you learn that you can make it through this or whatever. It's like the no single instance of pain is
Okay.
unbearable.
I think the section you're talking about is Warding, and I also don't really like her section, and it's written in a really difficult to understand AAV style. And yeah, it's always been my least favorite, and I don't think I've liked it anymore each time. Like some of the people that she talks about, I like some of the people that show up later, but yeah, Warding's is not mine. I think that's the only section we get from her in the entire book as well.
Oh, good.
Last one. How accurately is from that? How accurately does DFW capture the Canadian spirit?
And then later amended to the Quebecois spirit. I mean, I've said in the chat, I'm not convinced David Foster Wallace has met or seen a Canadian before.
No, the way he describes the way they fart is like
I'm
on the
just like,
money.
what are you talking about? He brings up like and this character, like all Canadians, does this bizarre thing that I personally have never heard of before. Like what like David Foster Wallace, you have to be trolling me specifically here. Like
I think this is just cultural blindness. Like
um
we all see
but
it, you don't.
then other like he does get like a lot of the vibe of Quebecois people kind of accurate, and it's
I don't know,
like a
new Quebecers.
bizarre, surreal experience to hear him just like switch so rapidly between seeming like he gets it more than most Americans, and then totally missing it in other places, or
Okay,
like maybe
mask
deliberately
off.
missing it. I don't know.
I think most of the time when they're describing like these Canadian jokes, they are in view of Hal or Pemulus or the people in ETA who do make fun of Canadians and have probably incorrect cultural misunderstandings of Canadians.
I mean, I've met actual like when I was younger, I would travel down to the States quite a bit, and there was like this certain brand of American who was like unironically believing that we live in igloos and ride polar bears.
Thanks to this book, I call all Canadians nuts. So
Nux. I don't mind that. I think I mean Canuck is a word that's kind of fallen out of favor. It's just like not used very much anymore. It's like an old slang. But yeah, we still have a hockey team called the Canucks. Slur? That's fair. Much as I would like to popularize calling our dads himself.
You have to work really hard to get that to do that the way you want it to.
Was I? You said that was the last question. I believe there was at
is there?
least one more.
Oh, the metaphors? I didn't even pick
About
going. We talked about that last time. We had a long section
Yeah, we
about
already
the many
talked about the
metaphors.
metaphors.
Are
Yeah.
there new ones? Can you think of any?
the cake is a metaphor for AA.
Okay.
An AA
That
is
okay.
a metaphor for a machine that
I think
controls you.
the cake is a metaphor for the goal.
Mm. And the
Cake
crocodile, like calling them
instructions are a
crocodiles, is a
metaphor for
metaphor
AA.
for them looking leathery and toothy.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's see. What is Gately's cooking a metaphor for?
Being bad at cooking.
Hmm.
Not a very good metaphor.
Very direct metaphor right there.
There's more metaphors in here, right? The mirrors that the Quebecois terrorists drag across the road, I think, are I think that whole thing is a metaphor for this kind of belligerent American spirit that is sometimes
Sounds
self-destructive.
pretty good. Maybe Gately's cooking is a metaphor for good
Clearly.
intentions.
Sometimes they're just not worth that much.
No.
The joke is a metaphor for book. Yes.
That one's obvious.
Yeah. Mario is a metaphor for dinosaurs and how life would be better if we currently
It
had
would be better if we were
dinosaurs.
all dinosaurs.
With like totally identical teeth filling our mouths.
That's actually
Let's not make
so
it too
funny.
weird there. Come on, Ash. Let's
Crossing a line there.
I mean the perfect teeth and the same teeth in every mouth. That's where my realisticness cuts off.
You guys picked up in any supernatural elements?
I mean, aside from the wheelchair assassins getting everywhere they
I don't
need
think
to
that's
go.
supernatural. I think
I
that's
mean,
just
yeah, it's just I'm
very
teasing
high
like
effort.
it's that seems like it's more just high effort, but it could be
could be, I
supernatural,
suppose.
but
We
no, I
haven't seen them.
really.
We just
Joel and Avril are both superhumanly attractive.
the part where Hal and Mario and Orin have to deal with the fact that they have a hottie for a mother at
Yeah.
50. I find it kind of sad that Orin, in quitting tennis, was trying to distance himself from his family. He gets interested in the pea goat because the pea goat is into film.
Yeah. And
She
then ends up
pulls him back
not
into his
having an
relationship with
affair
his
with
family.
James, but everyone thinks that they
Yeah.
had an affair.
Or didn't think so. I'm pretty sure Avril didn't think so either.
Avril
I guess everybody else
didn't
did.
Avril think so?
Maybe.
I
I
feel like
doubt
there
it.
was a
though.
footnote
Avril's
very
something
clearly
weird.
explaining that one of them clearly knew it wasn't an affair. But,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it was Orin that knew.
Orin definitely knew that there was nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we've listed all
Sounds
the
good to me.
metaphors.
All of them, every single one.
I-
No more.
I will say I am actually looking forward to
Me
getting
too.
back to this work. And eventually one day finishing. But,
Our next episode is going to be after we finish.
We can do one more, we can do two more. I'm fine with both.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll decide after. That has been our episode on Infinite Jest by David Foster Wallace. I hope you enjoyed it. Rambling like the book itself. See, we all clearly give this a ringing endorsement. And
If you pay close attention, this episode is actually fractal. So go back and listen to sections,
Yeah.
and then
But
it'll
we
make
didn't use
sense.
the triangle fractal. We used a cooler, different, better
Just a
fractal.
cool fractal. We use a hexagonal fractal.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Ash.
it's boot
Thank you.
shaped, actually. Oh, thank you for listening. Thanks, Craig. Thanks, Legendarium. Thanks, Punks.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, people. Goodbye.